Alrighty, welcome everybody. Welcome to the special episode of Brownsville Tech Live and 956live.com. And in the house tonight, we've got a award-winning documentary and filmmaker, Mr. Joshua Moroles. Josh, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Yep, definitely. I know we'd been in contact for quite some time, and we wanted to hook up to do a show. And I figured with all the controversy these days in the last couple of months with regards to a data center, not just one data center, but a few data centers,
For sure.
decided
A few hundred, actually.
a few hundred, right? I decided to reach out to you, see if we wanted to get together and talk about that. So, Josh,
Absolutely.
for the viewing audience here in Brownsville that may or may not know you, can you give us a little bit of a background just on who you are, where you've been, what you've done, you know?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So professionally, I am a digital marketer. I help out businesses across the nation generate leads and market their businesses. And then during COVID, I started my own production company, and we shot our first documentary, which is on the bridge collapse. So in 2001, the bridge there at South Padre Island, the Queen Isabella, a barge hit it and it collapsed. And I told the story of what happened that night in detail from the guy that was fishing with his cousins on the bottom of the bridge that helped save people that night. And then from there, I kind of got the documentary bug per se. And then I started my second documentary, which was about a artist from Alamo, and he went to deface or graffiti a $78 million Pablo Picasso in Houston, fled the country for 6 months, served 2 years in jail. And my third documentary, I was kind of like going to just hang up the documentary mantle and say I couldn't find any good stories. But then the flooding happened in March last year, and that kind of sparked my interest. Like, oh, what's going on with this? So I made a documentary about the flooding issues that we experienced here in the Rio Grande Valley, and that kind of dove me into the problems that we face here in the Rio Grande Valley, not only from water contamination, water pollution, air pollution, but to a lot more things that are going on here in the Rio Grande Valley. And then I started working on my newest documentary, which is on dementia. And right now in Stark County, 1 in 4 people over the age of 65 suffer from dementia, and it's starting to slowly bleed into the Rio Grande Valley, where 1 in 5 will eventually have dementia or Alzheimer's in their lifetime. So
Right.
that's where I'm at right now. And just a caveat here. For your listeners, I do use AI every single day. I've used it since 2022, since I got first access to it in November 2022. I used it so much, 2 to 3 hours every single day, because I knew this was going to become the next biggest thing. ChatGPT actually sent me a message saying to go outside and go touch grass. So all those people that are call me a hypocrite, fine, whatever. But
Hey,
I use AI.
there's nothing wrong with that. So do you primarily use ChatGPT or do you use any other tools?
Yeah, so I've kind of started moving away from ChatGPT. I use Anthropic, and I use Grok quite a bit.
Right. Well, definitely we're using Grok quite a bit. You know, some people down here call me Elon's fanboy, but but I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not. You know,
At least,
but
uh, at least they don't want to ship you off to Mars like they want me to be shipped off to
no.
Mars. A lot
But
of my haters.
I've got a few people that I have in mind to ship off to Mars, but we won't get into that just yet. But one of the things that I think is pretty important is with regards to I know you've kind of made a name for yourself about being the guy that reports about the poop in the water,
Correct.
and
Yes, I am. I'm the 956 water guy, apparently.
you're the 956 water guy, and
Yeah.
you know I saw something today in I don't know whether it was Facebook or Instagram or something. And we pay a lot for water today. I'm talking about
Hmm.
bottled water, right? And one of the things that was so shocking was it was a graphic of the brand names of water bottlers, those companies that sell us water, right? And it was
Hmm.
shocking to find out that the majority of these so-called water bottling companies actually use tap water as the source. In
Yeah.
fact, the scary one was a brand called Fiji. And
Hmm.
the whole point to that one was that that stuff is shipped across the Pacific from a island that barely has clean water for the residents. What
Yeah.
confidence do we have that the stuff they ship over to us is, safe? I mean, you've heard the horror stories of dog food coming from China and your dog
Yeah.
dying or your cat dying. Uh,
Yeah. It's
but
pretty
we,
nasty. Have you ever tasted Fiji water?
no, I haven't.
It's not good. It doesn't taste good.
Well,
And that
it's,
brings up
yeah.
another point too, because I was at Specs earlier, and a gentleman was talking to me about Topo Chico. So the
Uh-huh.
Topo Chico plant over there in Monterrey, Mexico, is having water quality issues. So they're not producing as much Topo Chico as they usually do. So this guy was like stopping up with boxes and boxes of it. So it's just interesting to hear those little tidbits of stuff of information that kind of like you wouldn't think twice about, but then it kind of piques your interest and like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in the old days, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to
44.
remember. Okay, well, I'm a little older than you are, slightly a little more. But I remember, you know, we didn't drink bottled water when we were kids. In
Hmm.
fact, you know, we drank tap and we went even further and drank out of the manguera,
For sure.
you know? And so, we didn't have a whole lot of issues, at least we didn't think we did. But we pay
Yeah,
a
we
lot
didn't
for
think we did.
water. I mean, we pay a lot for water today, and we think it's safe, you know?
Hmm.
I mean,
We would assume it's safe because I mean all regulatory standards say it's safe to drink. And just for all your listeners out there, right now in June, everyone in the Rio Grande Valley and across the nation is going to get their consumer confidence report finally. And what a consumer confidence report is your water quality report that tells you what's in your water from last year. This is the problem I have with consumer confidence reports because if your water is compromised today, you will not find out till summer next year. This is a huge problem. I don't think people really understand this.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is that everybody gets these consumer confidence reports in the mail with their water bill. They look at it and like, what the hell is this? They throw it away. So this is one of these things where I think now hopefully I did a good enough job of explaining that the water situation we have here in the Rio Grande Valley is bad. So now hopefully people will actually pay attention to their consumer confidence report instead of just throwing it away.
Now, in your research, what do you think, or what have you discovered with regards to the why the water quality is bad? Do we have bad plumbing? Do we have sanitation plants that don't do a good job? I mean, what is the reason? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't drink Brownsville water. I don't like the taste. I don't like the smell. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it may be a different color. You know,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
in your research, what have you seen across the entire region as far as why water is bad?
Sure. Well, for one of those, all the reasons that you mentioned are part of that. But I think what your listeners should understand is that we get our water. 90% of the water that we get is from the Rio Grande River, and we get that water. It starts all the way from the Colorado mountains, and it comes all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley. So by the time we actually get the water, we only get about 15% of that water. So just imagine all the way from Colorado, it's going through states, cities, everywhere along that way. Even tribes, Indian tribes, are dumping stuff. Cities are dumping stuff into that river, wastewater, nasty water, clean water. A bunch of stuff is getting dumped into there. So it's all flowing down until it actually goes out into the Gulf, and it actually goes out into Laguna Madre, and then it goes out into the Gulf. But we also share that Rio Grande River with Mexico, so the Rio Bravo
Right.
River. So they have different standards than we do in the United States. So they dump whatever they want into that river as well. And we share that resource of our water. So all the way from Colorado River, I mean, all the way from Colorado comes all the way down. We share it with the Mexico. So you can just imagine how much stuff gets dumped in there. So you have to realize that the municipalities are working very hard. I think I get a lot of backlash from municipalities and from the cities saying that I'm demeaning their employees. I'm really not. Like these guys are doing the best with what they have because they have to treat water that is so contaminated and so polluted. They have to get it to us as clean as possible. But the problem with that is when you look at the consumer confidence reports, the way they treat this water is with chlorides and chlorines, which have been known to cause illness in humans. So
Okay.
the more chlorides and more chlorines they use, this creates a disinfectant byproduct that can, in fact, give you a disease or an illness or has been known to cause cancer. So pair that up with old infrastructure, old pipes, poverty here in the Rio Grande Valley. I saw an article a few months ago about how colonias dump raw sewage up to 1 million gallons a day into the Arroyo Colorado, and I can imagine that they probably dump it into the Rio Grande River too. So
Right.
it's all this stuff that's being piled on, stressor on top of stressor on top of stressor on top of stressor, is why you kind of can answer the question that I've had posed for so long is like, why do we have so many sick people here in the Rio Grande Valley? And it's not just the water, it's a bunch of different stressors that we can continue to talk about. So
Yeah. Well,
I hope that
definitely.
answered your question.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I can tell you by experience, I used to jet ski quite a bit, and one of the things that I did one time is I went to the Arroyo Colorado, and I only went once, and I never went back. My jet ski was white. The hull
Hmm.
was white. It came out of there dark black. It was
Eesh.
horrible. It was nasty. I mean, I'm not even sure I'd want to even, you know, eat the fish from there, right? But I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. But you mentioned about Mexico. And
Mhm.
many years ago, um, I remember there was a lot of kids being born with anencephaly, which
Yes.
I believe is like partial brain or maybe no brain.
Mhm.
I don't know
That was
whatever
in the 90s.
that was in the 90s. Yeah, it was in the
Yeah.
90s. And I'm telling you this because I used to work for a maquiladora that
Interesting.
got in trouble because they found out that they were dumping the uh, the scrap material, which contained all kinds of chemicals, into the into a dump on the Mexican side that was near the river. Now,
Yeah,
whether that was one of the reasons why this was happening, I don't know. But definitely there are different standards. There's no doubt
for
about that.
sure.
Once you
Yeah, did
step
you know
out,
that there's 150 manufacturing plants there in Reynosa, just right across the
oh
border?
yeah,
I think that statistic kind of blows people's minds if they don't know.
yeah. I mean, people don't realize that there's a lot of products being manufactured in this area. Appliances,
Tons.
automotive parts, hearing aids, all kinds of stuff, you know. And there's all kinds of, waste that is accumulated from that process.
And it
And
has to go somewhere.
it's got to go somewhere, right?
Hmm.
It's got to go somewhere. You know, I've been facing a lot of flack because I was, and I still am a proponent of recycling here in Brownsville. We just started a recycling program. The city did.
Oh, isn't that Redfin that everybody has a problem with?
Well, yeah, yeah, and but the reality of it is, you know, I remember a few years back when we implemented plastic ban, the plastic bag ban, right? And people raised all kinds of hell over that, right? But what people don't remember is that shit was all over town. All those
Hmm.
plastic bags, they were everywhere. It was a nightmare, you know?
Yeah, and
And
then add
so,
on to that the infrastructure issues that we have with flooding because people love just to dump stuff, and this stuff clogs up drains, and then
exactly,
it adds to the problem.
it adds to the problem. I've keep on telling people we've got a public citizen education issue. We've got to stop the dumping. We've got to stop,
Hmm.
you know, the dirty diapers in the parking lots. We've got to stop the beer bottles, you know. I mean,
The
I kind of
wipies too, all that stuff.
all that stuff. You know, I kind of, you know, uh get some people upset cuz, when we talk about Boca Chica, there's a lot of controversy, right? With regards to SpaceX and so forth. But I can remember a time when I was a kid when you'd go down to Boca Chica and it was dirty. That was before SpaceX. No,
Hmm.
hombre, ahí avientaban dirty diapers, rusted fish hooks, broken beer bottles, and on occasion, an abandoned car. Ahí lo dejaban because somebody was stupid to leave the car too close to the shore,
Ugh.
and the tide would come in, and that was the end of it, right?
Ugh.
All for the high school kids on beach cleanup day to clean after their mess.
Hmm.
So we've got an education problem. Our
For
resacas,
sure.
you know, are filled with appliances, dirty mattresses, all kinds of stuff. And, we've got to do our part. We've got to do our part. We can't just expect government to do everything for us. We've got to
Yeah,
take
exactly.
initiative ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that we should let go of any standards at the same time, right? When we talk about standards, though, and clear this up for me and the general public, there are EPA standards out there with regards to water quality. Is there a certain amount of fecal matter allowed? I think they call it what, parts per million or parts per whatever.
Yeah, parts per
Is
million ppm.
ppm, is there an acceptable level, or should there be no acceptable level?
Personally, there should be no shit in my water, period.
Right?
I think this is the problem again with the consumer confidence reports because they average out these reports. So they take readings throughout the year. And from remember, I'm not a chemical engineer. I don't work for municipalities. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm not a water expert, any of that stuff. But just from the research that I've done, I see that these readings that they take for the water quality tests are an average of what they get throughout the year. So, I mean, for me, if I wanted to average out some water readings, then I would probably take some every now and then average them out to where it's the lowest possible way. But if you look at the consumer confidence reports, you'll see that some of them have fecal matter in them, E. coli bacteria in them, so coliform bacteria as well. So there's tiny amounts, but I mean, who really knows? Because some of these consumer confidence reports at these cities, they're getting violations, and they're not just getting violations once; they're getting them back to back to back to back. So, I mean, the standards, yes, are obviously these municipalities are doing the best they possibly can. But at the same time, like this stuff that you see in your consumer confidence reports, like for example, I think I was kind of set up for a talk that I went to because they asked me to go speak about what I've been talking about, right? When I got there, it was for the entire Rio Grande Valley municipalities. So these guys have to get hours and they have to listen to these speeches and these presentations. And I didn't realize that it was for literally the entire Rio Grande Valley, all the guys that are actually on the ground working at the municipalities in the water. So I gave my presentation, and the main guy came up to me at the end. He kind of made that face like, "Eeh." And I was like, I shouldn't have gave that presentation, right? He's like, no, no, no. I think it's good that you're sparking this conversation. But then, like, one of the ladies asked me, is like, well, should we be drinking the water? I was like, well, let me put it to you this way. And I busted out the consumer confidence report and I started reading all the chemicals that are in there, hallucinogenic acids, cyanide, bromium. There's a long list of chemicals in there. And I asked her, like, hey, if you were to come to my house and I offered you a glass of water, and I said, there's tiny, 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 tiny amounts of trace materials of all these different chemicals that are in your water, would you drink it? And she said no. So, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to present it that way because if we're getting our consumer confidence report that shows what's in the water from the year prior, I mean, chances are the same stuff is in our water this year.
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's kind of funny because I kind of get some of my uh, friends upset when I bring up the fact that, Jesus turned water into wine.
yeah.
But reading back historically, you know, back in those days, 2000 plus years ago, it wasn't safe to drink water, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why they drank wine. Now, there's all kinds of controversy whether it was fermented wine or whether it was, something mixed with water. Who knows? But I've been doing a little research, and as far as Roman engineering, how they brought the water, through aqueducts and stuff like that. And was reading the other day about public toilets during Roman times, and that was
Oh,
nasty.
yeah.
You know, I'm not really sure, you know, and they didn't even have toilet paper. I mean,
Yeah.
they used to sponge, if they were lucky.
Interesting.
So, but the whole point is that, you know, I'm glad that we live in the time that we do and we've got sanitation. It's not 100%, but it beats living during the time of the Romans. That's for
Oh,
sure.
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit. I wanted to touch on with regards to water scarcity. And
Mhm.
I wanted to kind of touch a little bit with regards to the situation in Corpus Christi primarily. There's been all kinds of news, not sure how factual, how true it is, but bottom line is they're running out of water. And obviously, that's a red flag for us, right? I don't know what the situation is there. Can you give us a little bit of background as to how they got there to
Sure.
that
Yeah.
point?
So I actually filmed, I think it was early April. I went out to Corpus Christi because right now the Rio Grande Valley is getting ramped up. We are, if people don't know this, we're in a growth at all cost mentality right now. So we're growing fast. We are investing billions and billions of dollars here in the Rio Grande Valley. And a lot of that's going to come to Cameron County, and a lot of that benefactors are going to come to Highway 48, which is where we're going to have our own RGV refinery row. I had the port commissioner, the new port commissioner, Luis Villarreal, on my podcast, and he was telling me that 80% of the land that is there on Highway 48 is available for industry. So 80%, we already have RLN and G, I forget what it's called, and we have a bunch more stuff coming that's down the pipeline. So if you think about that, we have 80% of the land left for industry because we are the only space that's available in the entire coast. This is how he explained it to me. We're the only place in the entire coast that has available land for industry. So you think about that for a second. 80% of the land is not being used right now. 80% of industry is going to come and fill that up in the next 10 to 20 years. So if you go back to now Corpus, when I was there, I was filming a mini documentary about their refinery road that is there, and I found out that about 60% of the water that is being used in the entire city, Corpus Christi, Ingleside, goes specifically just to industry. So Corpus Christi is drying up. They're having water emergencies. I think I forget what stage they're in right now, but they're going through a lot of problems with the water, and now they're digging into the aquifers that is taking water from the other cities that are across the way. So you think about that, it's like, where's the water for the people? The industry is getting priority, and this is kind of why I'm raising the red flag on what's going on here in the Rio Grande Valley, because once we allow these certain industries to come in here that are going to use our resources, they're not going to stop. Like these industries just don't push the pause button, or they don't turn off. They continuously go 24/7, 365 days a year, nonstop. So at some points, our water might just go away, or the way the judge Cortez framed it was, we'll never run out of water. Fine, we're going to run out of inexpensive water. Water right now is relatively inexpensive for a lot of
Right.
people. Now, you talk about the colonias, well, they have no other choice but to use tap water. But for people that have jobs that can afford bottled water, can afford clean water, they'll always have water, but they're just going to start to obviously pay more for the water. So you think about that, eventually we will start running out of water in the future if we do not secure our water rights, or our source of water. And now you're starting to see that McAllen is starting to build a desal plant. We're getting one at Laguna Madre is going to have their own desal plant. Another one at South Padre Island. So I commend them for thinking of the future of our water, because we need it. We've kicked the can so far down the line that there is no other choice. Like, we have to pay for our water, because then we're not going to have any water. And just imagine a day where we try to turn on the water on our faucets and nothing comes out, or we have to ration our water someday and we can only use it from this day to this day, and then for the next 2 days it's going to be shut off. Like, just think about that for a second, because I've talked to a lot of people, and this is a real reality that we can face in the future. And if you think about this, in Cameron County too, the same aquifer that goes up all the way to Corpus Christi, that's the same aquifer that they're using. So I mean, at some point, you kind of have to put these things together and say, yes, our water is not finite as we thought it was. So it's going to run out at some point, and if we don't figure out how to secure water for our future, then we're going to run out at some point. And once we invite 80% of that industry that's coming, they're probably going to get first dibs at the water, and we're going to see that same statistic again, as that 60% of the water that we have here is going to go straight to industry, and they're just going to consume it every single day forever.
Yeah. Now, you know, you mentioned desalinization, and I believe that there are countries out there. I think Saudi Arabia is one of them that is, you know, benefit quite a bit from desalinization. I know Brownsville has had a desalinization plant for many years. It only
Mhm.
supplies, I think, about 20% of the water. And I don't know what McAllen's proposed plant is going to supply as far as how much water, but the one down on South Padre, do we know the percentage, and could desalinization supply most of our water in the future? Is that
Well, from what I
possible?
understand, is that that one that's coming to South Padre Island is a private desal plant. From what I understand, I'm not sure what you heard, but I'm only assuming that that's going to be used. I don't even know if it's going to be used for the community. Like there's that's another problem that I have, is that a lot of these things that are coming to the Rio Grande Valley as far as industry, these big projects that are investing tons of money, are behind backdoor deals and NDAs. Like we can't even find out what's going on. And that's probably one of the things that sparked my ears and eyebrows to go up, is like when we heard NDAs with the data center that's coming, it's like we don't even know if they're going to use a closed loop water system. We don't know anything because they're behind backdoor deals and NDAs. So these desal plants that's coming to South Padre Island, I don't really know much about it. I mean, I know the Laguna Madre one. I know that they invested millions of dollars and they're securing some water. But like I said, we've kicked the can so far down the line. This is just where we're at, and we have no other choice but to invest in it. And it's going to come out of everybody's pocket.
Well, one of the dangers that can happen is that you have companies that do relocate, right? Give you an example, the windmills. We've got a shitload of windmills all over the place, right? But we don't get the electricity from those windmills. It gets sold like a commodity, right? And it gets sold elsewhere. So, one concern would be, okay, we've got the Gulf of Mexico with tons of water. We're desalinizing, but what happens if somebody gets the kooky idea of transporting that water somewhere else? You know,
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
the idea, at least for the plant, was that it would be for our benefit, right? But I could see the possibility that, you've got a plant producing a ton of water, you know, um, somebody's gonna get their ears perked up and say, we can sell it out there in the market, make a little money,
Hmm.
you know,
Commodity,
S- a commodity, because that's
for
what it
sure.
is. I mean,
Hmm.
electricity is sold every day, every minute,
Yeah.
right? Like a commodity. In fact, I have a funny story because I almost went to work for Enron back in the 90s. Uh, I was so glad that I didn't get the job in the end, right? But my friends, a lot of my college friends, that was the big thing. Enron was like the place to go. There's two companies in Houston that graduates, especially in IT, wanted to go work. Want to go work for
Hmm.
Enron, and they wanted to go work for Arthur Anderson, which was an accounting firm, which got in trouble, by the way, along with Enron, right? I ended up working for IBM, but that's another story, but uh, you know, uh, but it's a commodity. They sold energy left and right?
Yeah.
And so that is a concern because, like I said, we've got windmills up the wazoo. You
Yeah.
and
And to dig in a little bit further, those windmills there in Cameron County, Project Katie, which is a Bitcoin miner right there, and that the Bitcoin miner is the first phase, and the second phase is the data center.
yeah. Now, let me ask you this. We may
Mhm.
piss off a few MAGA supporters, but do windmills cause cancer?
Ooh, uh, I already deal with a lot of haters, so I'll let them hate on you.
Anyway, I just want to throw that out. So let's talk a little bit about data centers.
Sure.
Obviously, there's a small scale operation right now at the Newhouse Tower in McAllen. It's not anything
Hmm.
spectacular to brag about. But obviously, the one in Harlingen, the one that they're proposing somewhere by the airport, is a huge one. And I had a picture.
Yes.
I apologize. I was supposed to put it on the screen, but with all the technical difficulties this evening, I may not be able to do that. But, you know, one of the things about data centers, I think you mentioned in one of your podcasts, was that there's, I think, over 500 in Texas or close to it, right? There's thousands across the country.
Yes.
And there seems to be communities that have gone crazy and done all kinds of stuff to lure the data centers. And for a lot of people that don't understand what data centers are, as somebody in the high tech industry like myself, I can tell you that I've seen changes in the industry from the 1990s moving forward, and even before then. But basically, back in the old days, before you and I were even born, computers were these huge machines that occupied these rooms, these air conditioned rooms, right? And as the integrated circuit, replaced the old transistor and microprocessors came into place, uh, the big computing centers that used to exist in buildings um, kind of shrunk. But then there was all kinds of, you know, fads come and go of going from centralization of computing to decentralization of computing. And we've gone through many reiterations. In fact, during the 1990s, there was a term that was used called client server. And basically, it was basically distributed computing. So we've been through this many times. But then in the 2000s, companies started looking at their computing needs and realized that they were spending a lot of money in hardware and software and people, right? They were spending a huge amount of money in these areas and they were trying to find ways to cut costs. And one of the ways that they cut costs, as most companies have, is through outsourcing, right? Outsourcing of equipment, of hardware, software, and people. And I can tell you firsthand that, you know, I worked in a company where at the end of the day, we got rid of our mainframe. We got rid of the computer operators that manned the mainframe. We got rid of the support personnel and we outsourced it. And we outsourced it to, at that time, companies like IBM that provided those services. And what that meant is that there was a cost savings, right? And it started off that way. And now a lot of companies use services like AWS, Amazon Web Services, to man their operations, right?
Hmm.
So as a result of that, you've got these data centers that are built, and what they are, they're like warehouses, right? And they've got a ton, hundreds and hundreds of servers on racks. And it went crazy when all this digital currency stuff started happening a few years ago. And then we got into AI, right? And that's, you know, uh, increased the amount of needs. But what a lot of people don't realize is that those needs are fueled by consumers, right? I mean, when we grab our phone and we go into chat gpt and we're trying to make a graphic, it's, you're keying the stuff into your phone, but those
For
commands are
sure.
going somewhere to a data center that's churning stuff around. And that
Yeah. Even
stuff
Facebook and X and all
everything.
these social media
Yeah.
companies too. Every
Yeah, they don't have their I mean, they can set up their own data centers, but sometimes they even outsource that, right? Like X, I'm told, doesn't have their own data centers. They outsource it, right? But I think Meta has their own data centers. But a lot of companies use Amazon Web Services, right? You've heard about CloudStrike, all the issues with CloudStrike and stuff like that. Um, you don't have physical, mainframes or big servers in most buildings now, and that's where these data centers come about. So that's how we got there. But there appears to be this idea that they create a lot of jobs. Well, you and I both know that it doesn't take a whole
Mhm.
lot to man these things, right?
Nope, not at
I
all.
mean, I mean, yeah, once during the construction phase, yes, there's jobs, right? Maybe in the hundreds and thousands. But in reality, it takes one person behind a console that can man X amount of servers. You don't need
And
50
a few
people
security guards outside.
and a few security guards, if you're lucky, unless you have
Yeah.
cameras all over the place, right?
Flock
So,
cameras.
yeah, lots of cameras. So, you know, there is that, you know, misunderstanding that they do create hundreds and hundreds of jobs. Now, I'm told that the one in Harlingen that they're proposing, I went to the NES website, which is the company, the private company that is proposing to build this thing.
Mhm.
And they mentioned on their website 1,000 plus construction jobs, but then once that's over, it's about 300 plus jobs. Is that about what you've heard? Something like that.
Yeah, that's about what I've heard. And that actually goes to another point of because I follow the commissioners and the judges in each county, and I saw Judge Cortez talk about specifically about data centers and about being picky with what industry we allow to come in, because I think he already foresaw that it's data centers. Fine, yeah, they create thousands of jobs during the construction phase, but it's minuscule the jobs that are going to carry on throughout the lifetime of the operation. So that's why he was kind of picking which industries that they actually want to bring here. And now that I see Highway 48 is going to get built up with industry, now I see where that his thoughts were coming from. So yeah, to go back to your point, that's about maybe 300 jobs possibly.
Yeah. Now, there is an argument, right? And I've argued it at times. There's obviously people against, you know, the industry, you know. Uh, we know that for a long time, the entire area has been behind as far as jobs, and there's a need for jobs, right? We need high
For
paying
sure.
jobs. For too long, the area suffered through brain drain, where, you know, kids leave the valley and don't come back. In fact,
Hmm.
I was one of those, right? I mean, back in when I wanted to get an IT degree back in the 90s, they didn't offer a computer science program here at all. Nowhere. I think the closest one was in Corpus, right? So I'll be honest with you. I had no plans to ever come back down.
Hmm.
The only reason I came back was by accident. Actually, it wasn't even by accident. It was by a joke. I came down one weekend to see my parents, and back in those days, they still published uh, job openings in the paper, and I saw this position in the paper one Sunday morning, and I looked at it, and it said systems engineering manager. Thought, ah, I'll send my resume as a joke. They're never going to call me, right? About a week later, well, I went back up to Houston A week later, they called me. Not and about 5 minutes after the call, they had a ticket for me to fly
Wow.
down. And 8 hours later that day, I had the job, and the rest was
Nice.
history. But I had no plans, right? I had no plans of coming back. And so I'm an example of a case where I actually came back, but we lose a lot of talent right along the way
Right.
because pay's low and so forth.
For sure.
What
And I
what
think a lot of people think that I'm against industry coming in. And I think that the problem when I talk about it too is like, well, you don't want jobs here in the Rio Grande Valley. That's not true, guys. Like, I think that the thing that I have a problem with that I've seen across the board is when cities and counties are only talking about economic growth and they choose to not talk about the environment because we have to live in the environment that we're in. And if the water is not good, the air quality is not good, people are going to put themselves in risk's way to be able to put food on their family's table. Like I'm not naive. I would do the same and go work in a job that is hazardous and put my health in questionable uh, environments if I needed to put food on my family's table. I get it. I'm not naive to that, but it's not responsible on the city or the county's behalf if they only talk about economic growth and choose to not talk about the environment that the people have to work in. So
right?
that's my spiel with that, because it is irresponsible for a city and a county to not talk about the environment that they are going to put people in these new jobs in these new industries that are coming in. So it is important to talk about the type of industries that are coming in. And I think for one, FAR did a really good job. There's a new company that's coming down that is going to be an assembling plant for tech, SSD cards and stuff like that. Like that is a good choice because it's not going to put air emissions into the air that are bad for us or for the community, and it's not going to suck up a lot of the water. It's going to have energy problems in the future, but I mean, it's the worst of it's the best of the worst, I guess.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I try to, I've interviewed quite a few uh, political leaders over the last 4 years at the county, city level, at least here locally. Had an opportunity to even interview uh, the current McAllen mayor, Villalobos. Yeah,
Villalobos.
a few months ago. And one of the questions I ask them is, and I'm asking you, is can we strike a balance somewhere? Is that achievable? One thing I don't agree with is, we have a pretty loud group here that's anti SpaceX, um, led by what we call the spray paint bandit. And a couple of years ago, they spray painted a mural that the city painted. One of the very first ones. I don't know if you heard about it. It was a pink one. So a lot of people didn't like it,
Mm-mm.
but the spray paint bandit, it was a girl. She went out there and she spray painted the mural and put FUCK SpaceX. You know, and there seems to be this uh one adversarial approach. I mean, I don't think we have to go that far to protest, right? Everybody has a responsibility, has a right to protest, right? But I don't think
Mhm.
we need to go that far, to get somebody's attention.
Well, I
But
think it just kind of shows you the division in the people, because before, when I heard SpaceX was coming, I was like, yeah, we're gonna have rockets here and stuff like
yeah,
that. And it's amazing. I'm all into space. I like Elon Musk. I like a lot of stuff that he did. And now that we have SpaceX here in Cameron County, it's awesome. But then I started seeing what it's doing to the environment and how he's starting to take a little bit more, and he's taking a little bit more, and he's taking a little bit more. And you can kind of see that when industry comes in, they start taking a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And it kind of takes away the value of what the Rio Grande Valley was. And going back to your point when you were talking about Villalobos, I think it's important to talk about the environment again. And I kind of go back to the environment. And I'm not an environmentalist. I'm not the person that's going to go out and hug trees and stuff like that. I'm not the
You're
guy that's going to
you're
go and
not
say,
going to
hey, all
chain
this stuff
yourself
like
to
that,
a
right?
tree.
I'm
You're not
not,
going
I'm
to
not that guy. I'm sorry.
you're not going to chain yourself to a tree.
Yeah, and I'm not going to tie myself to a tree, but I think it's important to speak about the environment because we have to live here. Like our
Right.
children are going to grow up here. The Rio Grande Valley has 1/3 of people under the age of 18, so we're a relatively young region. And
We are.
now, if we don't talk about the problems and the industry that's coming, Brownsville is already ranked number 2 in the nation for year-round particulate matter. So this is PM 2.5, the dust that's in the air that can get into your lungs and into your bloodstream that can cause respiratory illnesses. Asthma is on the rise in Cameron County, and McAllen and surrounding cities are ranked number 16 in the nation, and it's quickly catching up. So can we strike a balance and to answer your question, can we strike a balance in what industry we bring? I don't think we can anymore because we already are ranked number 2 in Brownsville for particulate matter year round. McAllen and surrounding cities is number 16 or 17. So we have to be extra picky about who we bring out because if you start looking at the air permits that are being provided, I forget it's through TCEQ or I forget which site it is, but you can actually see the air permits that are being submitted. There was 6 of them that have been submitted since January, and these are big industries that are coming down to the Rio Grande Valley that are going to add to the air pollution. So 150 manufacturing companies in Reynosa, whatever gets emitted into the air, and when the wind is just right, it travels over here into the Rio Grande Valley, specifically McAllen and surrounding cities. Brownsville has their own problems. So I don't think we can at this point strike that balance. We have to be very picky about the industries that we allow to come in because even if you think about this, we're selling the Rio Grande Valley for peanuts because if you come in and here you offer $50 million to a city, and if they don't take it, the next city over is going to take it. So it's kind of like how do you navigate this when cities don't even want to talk and work with each other?
Right. Well, one of the things there's an argument, right, that and it's an argument primarily at the federal level. The current administration says, well, we can't w- we can get out of the Kyoto Treaty, we can get out of all these uh, you know environmental, you know, initiatives because even if we do all of the things that they want us to do, the rest of the world won't. China will continue to pollute,
For sure.
India will continue to pollute. And let's face it, Mexico will continue to pollute.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I just don't know that if we did everything 100% here in the valley, that we still wouldn't have issues with water being polluted because of everything going on in Mexico,
For
because
sure. Yeah,
those people,
I understand that argument. I just think it is we are at a breaking point right now where we have to make decisions that are going to affect the region because a lot of people are their eyeballs are here in the Rio Grande Valley because land is cheap. It's inexpensive to get land down here. It's inexpensive to build down here. There's a bunch of companies coming down from Austin, all around the world. People are coming down to the Rio Grande Valley. They have their eyes on it. And that's probably because of SpaceX. They opened up the eyes like, what is this Cameron County? What is this South Texas border region right there? And I mean, it's kind of, you think about that, and I'll go back to the air quality again because we do have an opportunity to be very picky about who we allow to come in here, but we just don't have the tools to be able to say, hey, we got bad air quality. Because right now, across the Rio Grande Valley, we only have 5 TCEQ monitors, air quality monitors, and there's 3 in Hidalgo County, 2 in Cameron County, none in Stark County, none in Willacy County. And that's why I started an initiative to get 50 air quality meters here that are all connected to each other from Starr County all the way to Willacy County, Cameron County, and Hidalgo County to be able to measure the air and track the air and see trends over time before big industry comes, that we can have at least a baseline, because this is exactly how Corpus Christi fought against an ammonia plant that was going to be emitting air emissions into the air that were going to be devastating for the region. They got their own air quality monitors. They provided the data to the city and the county, and the city and the county denied it because they had the data behind it. We only have 5 TCQ air monitors right now. That simply is not enough for what's coming down the line. So I think, to answer your question, we need the data. We need to be able to collect the data, and we need to be able to present it, because if this is where everybody has their eyeballs and they're looking here now, we need to make these adjustments now. That way we just don't let somebody come in that can be very devastating to the region, because like I was talking about earlier, once you start adding stressor on top of stressor on top of stressor, you have cardiovascular illnesses. That is the number one thing here. Diabetes is the number one thing here. We have dementia on the rise. We have asthma on the rise, respiratory illnesses. We have so many sicknesses that are already here. When we keep adding stressor on top of stressor on top of stressor, our region is going to get sicker every single year.
Hmm. Now, one of the things that we haven't really touched about is the electrical needs the of the data center that's being
Mhm.
proposed, right? I believe that the data center is the capacity is like 2 gigawatts. No,
Correct. Yeah.
two
2 gigawatts,
gigawatts,
2,000
two
megawatts.
2,000 megawatts.
Mhm.
Does Harlingen have the capacity to handle a 2 gigawatt facility?
Well, apparently it's not Harlingen; it's right outside, so it's the county's problem, from what I understand, what the mayor and the council keep saying. But I would propose the question to answer your question is, I mean, look at the storms that we've gotten these past few weeks. There's power outages already. I know they're building backup battery areas there in Harlingen, right behind the airport, from what I understand. If it can't handle the storms that we have now, the Texas grid is, I don't know, it's iffy. I mean, people are experiencing power outages all the time, and this is not even like a big hurricane that's coming. So South Padre Island, from I just learned this today, that they've experienced blackouts for years. So
Right.
to answer your question, I don't think our grid can handle it, especially here in the Rio Grande Valley at all.
Yeah. And what's your take on, you know, small nuclear reactors as a possible solution
Yeah,
to
from what I understand, they're good. I don't know too much about them, but if a company is going to come in and they're going to pay for their own power, awesome. Because you think about this, like all the pushback from data centers that communities have been pushing towards, like people are showing up to these county meetings and pushing back, and that's the reason why these companies starting to think outside the box. Like, okay, let's have data centers in space, or let's have data centers in the ocean. Like
right.
this is a result of people's pushback. And if they can create their own power, create their own water, awesome. That's even better, because then we're left with what we originally had. But I mean, you think about the water issues, where are they going to pull that water from? It's going to be from the Rio Grande River, the Arroyo Colorado, or from
Right.
the ground aquifers. I mean, where else?
Well, I believe that the data centers and space thing is one of Elon's ideas, right?
Hmm.
I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but you know, the one of the biggest problems with satellite communications has always been latency, right? And that is the
Right.
time that it takes for the signal to get from there to here. It's always been slow, right? Now, I
Which
know
is
that
the
stuff.
reason why data centers exist in cities.
Correct. And what's even funny is that a lot of people don't realize that 90% of the communications, internet communications today is hardwired underwater cables. It is not satellite. It's not satellite because satellite communications traditionally have been slow.
Wasn't
So
that created for the stock market, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't remember. It was too long ago, but 90% of internet communications is through hardwire, you know, through undersea cables and so forth. So, you know, I'm curious to see how that's going to work, right? Um, but like I said, I don't know if there's going to be too many volunteers to go up and repair a data center
For sure.
problem up there,
Hmm.
you know. But you know, it's kind of. Do you think that you know there's any leadership here regionally that is willing to stand up and raise the flags? It almost appears that every city in the region is in a race to outdo the other, right?
Yeah, the growth
Um,
at all cost mentality. That's exactly what it is.
yeah, and I get
Yeah.
it. I understand the need for jobs and I understand the need for economic growth, but there's issues. I mean, look, I don't think you and I can agree that there's no Republican and no Democrat that wants a dirty beach, a dirty environment, dirty air, dirty water. I don't think there is one, you know,
Unless
um,
they don't live here.
unless they don't live here, right? And even then,
And
right?
that's the whole controversy with I'm sorry, what's his name? The Mr. Wonderful. It's like I see a lot of his content stuff, and he says he's the only environmental guy that he's the only guy that has an environmental justice or something like that. I forget what he said, but he's getting a lot of backlash because he's investing in this stuff, but he doesn't live there. So
Right.
a lot of people are pushing back on this. So like it's the same thing. To answer your question, are there any officials that are willing to stand up? I saw a few officials, and Harlingen just passed the 120-day moratorium, but I think they kind of just did it to like get people off their backs and like push them out. Like, okay, guys, we're listening, but get off our backs for the next 120 days. Who knows what's going
Well,
to happen after the 120
well,
days?
that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that because I know that, when they passed that, that was the same thought, right? That went through my mind is, are you doing it because you really care, or are
Or
you
to
doing it
appease the community?
or just to appease a vocal group, right? And what's going to happen after the 120-day period is over? I have an idea
Exactly.
of what's going to happen. Uh,
Yeah.
but
I mean, you think about that too, because if they pass the 120-day moratorium and they say that they can't do anything about it anyways, okay, well, what's the point? Like if it falls on the county, they're just doing it so they can look good and say, hey guys, get off our backs, go to the county now. Because I think I forget one of the city commissioner's name. I forget. He's the older gentleman, and
the
he
one that
was
said
saying, "I'm not going to vote for
socialist,
this
the one that
because
said
I'm."
socialist,
Yes,
that one.
yeah, that one. He's like,
Some
"I'm not
old,
going to vote for this, but if you have a problem, go to the county because we can't do anything about it anyways." So that kind of just shows you, yes, it was for show and to get people off their backs to appease the community.
yeah. I can tell you that I know that the Harlingen Economic Development Council or the corporation, whatever they're called, they've been chasing this thing for far longer than it became public. I
For
know
sure. There's
this.
my friend did the Freedom of Information Act, and we got all the emails of them actually talking about it last year,
Yeah, I know
early
this.
last year.
Now, I have interviewed county officials. They say that Harlingen has never reached out to the county. That was the last, interview that I did with the
Hmm.
county judge back a month or two ago, right? So I don't know what's true, but
Yeah. Nobody
uh,
does.
nobody seems to, right? But definitely, I have an idea of what's probably going to happen, right?
Yeah, we're getting a
Uh,
data center, guys. That's what it is.
yeah, I mean, I didn't want to say it, right? But I think
All the
it's a
evidence points to that.
right. Yeah.
And it's
So
unfortunate because it's unfortunate because why won't you just tell us like that? This just proves the distrust in the government that people already have. Like, be straight out with us. Like, we're not idiots, guys. Like, bring us into the conversation. And there's another problem with executive sessions that are happening across the Rio Grande Valley. It's like, I don't think they want the public input. They want to appease us and have us show up and talk about this stuff, but it's
well,
just to appease us. They can't speak anyways.
yeah, one of the things I will say though, which is a problem, is I can tell you that, you know, participation even out with the public sometimes doesn't happen either, right?
At
Uh,
all.
at all.
It's
It doesn't
unfortunate.
it doesn't happen until shit hits the roof, right?
Yep.
After the horse left the barn, right?
Yep.
And so that's a problem, right? Because at the end of the day, these people that get elected really work for us, right? So
I think
we can,
somebody said it well the other day. I forget who it was. I think it was the new Julio Salinas who just got elected for the Democrat, Texas 41. He said that the politicians no longer fear the regular people, which is true because you see it. Like, they're doing whatever they want. They go out and shake your hand and smile at you, and then just turn around and do what they were going to do anyways. And
right,
that's why I think a lot of people have distrust in what's going on here because they'll say one thing, turn around and do something else. And I think that's another reason why people don't go out and vote because they feel like nobody's listening anyways.
right, right. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, right?
Very
And
unfortunate.
and it's but it's not just the local level, it's at the state level, at the national level. I mean, it's sad, right, that in a country of our size, a very small percentage actually decide who's going to lead them for 4 years or 8 years,
Very small percentage. It's so
right?
sad.
Here locally, at least here in Brownsville, six to
Hmm.
10% of the total population makes those decisions. And then,
Crazy.
you know, we wonder why things happen, right? It's because the lack of voter participation. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat, but it's a problem in both sides. I'll give you an example. Last week, regardless of what your position was, one way or the other, but there is a race for U.S. Senate. Ken Paxton versus John Cornyn. Okay, Stark County, 16,000 registered Republicans. Okay, that's according to the rolls. 16,000. Out of those 16,000, 90 people in Stark County voted in the Republican runoff.
Wow.
90 of those people voted for Ken Paxton. Okay.
Wow.
What does that tell you? It tells you that the rest of those 15,000 plus people didn't give a shit and stayed home.
Yeah.
And whatever your thoughts are of the results of that primary race, but it tells you that even at the state level, it's embarrassing, right?
Yep.
That somebody could get into an election that is crooked, right? I'm not saying that he is, okay? I'm just saying that you have that. But it's because
Right.
90 people gave a shit and 15,000 didn't, and it's the same thing that happens at the city level, at the county level, at the state level, and even at the presidential level, at the federal level. It's unfortunate. But once policies are passed, initiatives are passed, things happen, whether it's industry, data center, you name it, whatever the policy is, people don't like it, but they failed to show up when it mattered. And that was
Right.
at the ballot box, you know? You know,
Hmm.
it's unfortunate. It's
Very
unfortunate.
unfortunate. And I bang
Yeah,
my head and scratch my head. I was like, why don't people show up? I don't understand. And I mean, I get it because there was a point where I didn't even care. And a lot of the feedback that I get is like, well, they didn't know, or they weren't aware this was going on, or they weren't aware that they had to vote again. So that's one of the big things.
yeah. You know, it's funny that, in this country, a small percentage votes, but then you have other countries in the world where you have 95% participation. It just
Hmm.
mind boggles you, right? It's kind of like,
Really does.
it really does. But anyway, didn't want to get into that subject, but it's kind of related.
Yeah.
It is
It's
related.
it's a it's an important subject because I think the a lot of the stuff that we're facing is political. Data centers, who are we allowing come in? Who makes the decisions? It's
Right.
political. The air pollution, the water stuff, all of it trickles back into some type of politics because think about the 1944 treaty. It's political. So
Yeah.
at some way or the other, it ends up being political.
Yeah. Absolutely. So all right, Joshua. Well, I know we went on for about an hour and a half. We could go on much more, but
For sure.
de- but definitely this is going to be interesting to watch. Like I said, my biggest curiosity is what happens after the 120-day moratorium is over, right? Are we
Yeah.
going to get a data center or are we not? The concern's still there over electrical capacity. You know,
Hmm.
does the city, does the region, can we support such a monstrosity, right? And of course, the water, right?
Right.
You know, are we going to pay more or are we going to lose more, right? Those are the questions that still are unanswered. And I think
For sure.
it's something that all of us have um, a responsibility to ask the questions and do the research because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to live with the results of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll
And our
tell you
and our
right,
kids will inherit the decisions that we make today.
right. And I'm not very excited about paying extra electrical rates and water rates for something that's not necessarily mine. I'm not
For sure.
being I'm not putting one city against the other, but you know, we pay our fair share already
Yeah.
as it
My
is.
my dad my dad always taught me that prices only go up. They never come down.
Almost never. That's right.
Yeah.
So, all righty, Josh, it was great to have you on. Hopefully, we can do this again soon. You know,
Absolutely. Yeah. Before we finish, I just want to talk about the new initiative I have going on with the air quality meters that I've been diving into.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so right now, like I stated earlier, there's 5 TCQ monitors spread out through the entire Rio Grande Valley, 3 in Hidalgo County, 2 in Cameron County, none in Starr County, and none in Willacy County. So I started a new community project, which is the Rio Grande Valley's first independent community-owned air quality monitoring network, and it's going to have 50 air quality monitors across 4 counties that will serve 1.4 million people. I bought the first one already. They're $277 with the coupon that I found. And this air quality monitor measures all the important stuff that we need, like PM2.5, PM10, the bad stuff that's in the air as well. Because, like I said, we only have 5 TCQ monitors. That's not enough for this region. And the reason why I decided on air quality monitors is because this is how we are going to be choosing which industries come into our region. So if we have the data, we can collect the data, we can collect the trends without it being manipulated by any company. It's community owned, it's for the region, and they're going to go up at schools, businesses, homes, churches, stuff like that across the region. That way, we have a good guide of what is in the air, where it's coming from, what days are bad, what days are good. We'll be able to collect the trends, and this is going to be the first community air monitoring program that I hope will open up the eyes of the region and be a little bit more picky with which industries that we allow in.
And what help do you need? Do you
Well,
need
they can go to
volunteers,
joshuamorales.com/air
donations?
quality. They can look at my website, have all the information there. They can help by purchasing a air quality monitor and hosting it at their house or business or wherever. They can donate so I can buy it. All the stuff is going to be 100% transparent. All the money that comes in is going to go straight to these air quality monitors. What I have proposed is that these will go up at locations that already have Wi-Fi, so we don't have to pay for the Wi-Fi. And then the other way is that they can host air quality monitor at their residence or at their house at strategic places across the Rio Grande Valley. So 3 ways to help: donate, buy an air quality monitor, or host an air quality monitor.
Now, do you have a website?
Yes, it's joshuamorales.com/air quality.
Okay. All right, everybody. So if you guys go to his website, you can check it out and find
Mhm.
ways that you can support this effort. Obviously, it's important to get independent data when it comes to air quality. Um, so be sure to go out there and check his website out and watch his videos. I tried
Yes.
watching a few of them yesterday and the day before yesterday. Uh, and once again, for those of you out there, be sure to uh, follow our pages at Brownsville Tech Live and 956 Live on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to both of our um, pages. So be sure to do that. When you do that, you're able to help us, improve our content, um, and bring you, shows like this. So it's important, you know, if you guys would go out there and like or subscribe and comment. So, all righty, Josh, it was nice
Awesome.
having you on the show. You know, I'm not sure. I think you live in the Upper Valley, right?
Yeah, I'm out of McAllen.
Uh, Next time I'm over there, I'll give you a ring. We can, get a cup of coffee or something.
Absolutely. We got a lot of good coffee shops here, so I'll show you around.
All righty, not a problem.
Awesome. Have a great one.
Everyone, thank you for watching. Don't forget, we've got Doug's Dugout, where we're going to be tracking everything going on in the MLB. And we're going to relaunch the Spin Zone, all about the Dallas Cowboys, season number 4. So it's going to be our year, just like every year. We can smell that Lombardi trophy already. So be sure to tune into that. Josh, have a great evening. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for having
Good
me on. I'll see y'all
good night.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.